In this tutorial, you'll build a real-time notification system in SwiftUI using Firebase and Firestore, where your UI updates instantly when new data arrives. On the left-hand side of the screen, the first simulator, we're logged in as Fred Blogs at the moment. So to show the application, how it works, I'll log in using Google Login as Iris Insights. Next thing I'll do, I will create a review for Fred Blogs. So I just type in hello world ABC and then post it. And as you can see, Fred Blogs, it contains a notification alert. So if I click on Fred Blogs profile, you'll see the actual notification that was submitted. Hello world ABC. And the notifications are also within a list, within the alerts as well. So we can also upload our profile image if we want to, and add our name and username. So this is the application we'll be creating. Most SwiftUI notification screens break with real-time Firestore. Here's how to build it properly. The first thing we need to do is to create a new file, which will be our view model. Name the file as notification or notifications view model. And then I'll just copy and paste some code from the clipboard. The stop method on line 22 doesn't exist at the moment, but we need to type in the following, which is task at main actor and then we also need a case for the failure to capture any error messages. Even though this view model is at main actor, I still hop back explicitly here because Firestore listeners are callback based. I don't like assuming which thread a backend callback arrives on when using publish. I'll just copy and paste some more code to the clipboard and then type in the rest. It's similar to what we just done previously. Task at main actor. also need to append a closing bracket and also another closing bracket there. So the next function we need to create is, I didn't explain about this block of code, so let me explain now. I keep unread count on its own listener rather than deriving it from items. Once the main list gets filtered, limited or paginated, derived badge counts become unreliable very quickly. And that's what I've experienced in the past. So now we need to create our stop function. Function stop. Listener, just remove our listener. Real-time listeners need explicit cleanup. If you forget this, it's very easy to end up with duplicate listeners, duplicate UI updates, and the kind of bugs that only show up after navigating back and forth a few times. So I'll just copy and paste the remaining code for this view model. I'll just compile it. The next file we need to create is our notification view. The purpose of this file is to show a list of notifications that have been retrieved from Firestore. So let's create that new file now, SwiftUI file. I'll just call it notifications view, and then I'll just copy the code from the clipboard. Oh yeah, also I need to import SwiftUI. Make sure everything is compilable. And then the next thing is to implement the rest of the code for this view and then explain it. So the first thing we need to do is type in the following code for lines 42. Relative time is a small UX win, but it matters more than it looks. Absolute timestamps makes things feel stale quickly, whereas this method is better when performing live updates. Now we need to navigate to .onApair and type in the following. And it should be is red, if not red. Marking as read on a pair is simple, but it's not free. In fast scrolling scenarios, this can trigger multiple writes very quickly. In production environment, you usually use debounce or batch this to avoid unnecessary loads. So the next thing we need to do is to navigate to lines 80, anywhere after line 78 anyway, and then type in the following. Starting listeners in task keeps it tied to the view lifecycle. If you trigger this trigger it in multiple places without stopping, you'll end up with duplicate listeners and duplicated UI updates, which is a classic real-time bug. And now we will just stop the listener, as what I mentioned earlier. So what this is really, this is an explicit teardown, which matters when using Firebase or Firestore listeners. If this doesn't run reliably, you'll leak listeners and your app will feel haunted, with updates coming from screens that are no longer visible. The next thing we need to do is to open our main tab view that we created a few episodes ago. And then we need to create a new instance of our notifications view using @stateObject. I'll create a new instance of our notifications view model. I think there's an S missing. And then we need to add some code after the tab item of our alerts. So we just use .badge if. So that should be notify VM on red count more than 0. A red count. So the badge if extension doesn't exist, so I just copy and paste it from the clipboard to reduce the length of the video. And then after line 65, just type in the following. Now I mean after line 66, not 65. So let's task. And then we pass in the ID so that we get the correct notifications of the user. And then when the view will disappear, then we make sure that we stop the notifications. Now let's compile it again. If this tutorial has helped you, please comment, like and subscribe. And see you next week.